podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it Locked On Wildcats. I'm your host, Mike Luke. Excuse me, got a little bit of a cough there. But all right, as we talked about yesterday, Arizona gets Keshad Johnson. And just to rehash, what exactly does that mean? First of all, that means that Arizona is going to be significantly tougher this coming season. And by significantly tougher, I mean significantly tougher. Because out with Kerr Kriisa at the point guard, in with Kylan Boswell. And again, just watching Kylan Boswell, you can tell that physically this is a man that's a little bit different, a little bit cut from a little bit different cloth than Kerr Kriisa is, a little bit more of a competitor, not just kind of the fake yapper. Then you got Jaden Bradley next to him. I like Courtney Ramey. I like what Courtney Ramey did. But, you know, at the end of the day, Courtney Ramey basically had relegated himself to a three-point shooter. Is what it is. With the university or with Jaden Bradley, it's going to be a little bit different than that one. Jaden Bradley is a player who not the shooter that Ramey is, but he's going to be able to get into the paint. He's going to be able to get into the key and cause some problems and pass around pretty much right there. Then you got Pelle Larsson, our guy, the Swedish pinball at small forward. We're going to revisit this here in a moment or in a few minutes. I personally am not sold on Pelle as a starter, but that also doesn't mean that Pelle can't be a starter. Obviously, Tommy Lloyd knows a lot more about basketball than I do. But I would like to see another significant contributor brought in, mainly because with Pelle, we saw him start last year, and it wasn't pretty. When he went to the bench and he came off, he became Larry Bird, Pelle Bird. But that's something that I think Tommy Lloyd needs to address. Mainly, I'm cool with Pelle starting, but I need to have a real option, though, if Pelle's just not ready to be that dude. I need to have a real option right there. And so far, that isn't on the roster, but I think that Arizona is going to be able to find somebody like that. We will get back to that. And then up front, Keshad Johnson, obviously not the player that Azuolas Tubelis is, but I also think that he is a significantly tougher player. And if you watched Arizona this past couple years, yes, they looked really good, getting up and down, flying across the break, doing all kinds of stuff. But when the going got tough, a lot of times these players folded. And again, this isn't meant to beat up Oumar Ballo, but Oumar Ballo was one of those players that kind of folded. Or not Oumar Ballo, Azuolas Tubelis is one of those players that kind of folded. You know, just kind of is what it is. Hate saying it in that frame, but yeah, he's when the going got tough, Oumar Ballo or Azuolas Tubelis was generally not anywhere to be found. Then Oumar Ballo up front. I love Oumar. I know some people are out on Oumar. I love Oumar. Again, I think Oumar Ballo is I think he's a 14-8, 15-8 guy. Not a superstar, but definitely better than a role player and somebody that I think Arizona fans should be excited to have on their roster. I think that he could make a little bit of a jump, but not only do I think he can make a little bit of a jump, but I think he's going to be a little limited in how far he can get. But again, I think he could be a 16-8 guy. I think that's probably his ceiling. I don't think that he's going to get much better than that. But either way, he's much better than I already thought he would ever be coming in here. So again, that's a big tip of the cap right there to Oumar Ballo, leader of men, Oumar Ballo. So that's your starting five in theory right there. We'll get to the bench here in a second. But the one thing that you're still kind of lacking a little bit is, and I realize I'm going to speak out of both sides of my mouth right here. It's fun. You should try doing it sometime. Is that you got Jaden Bradley, you got Kylan Boswell. Bradley at this point is not what you would call a great shooter, but he's also I think he's going to become a better shooter. But again, you're not going to bank on Jaden Bradley being that dude from a shooting perspective. Now, when it comes to Pelle Larsson, what we saw last year here's what we know about Pella. Pella is a pretty tough dude. Again, that counts for a lot with this team. And not only is Pella a pretty tough dude, he's a player who I think it's fair to say is fairly limited. And I think we're at the stage with him where you know that you can play good defense, he can finish around the hoop. He's never going to be able to dribble. He's never going to be able to dribble, and he's never going to be able to really come off screens, shoot threes, this and that. I think so that's going to limit him a little bit. Now he's a pretty good set shot 3-point shooter, which is obviously a good thing to have. That's that's certainly a quality you like having. But again, he's not going to be able to be Kyle Korver. Not going to be able to come off screens, shoot threes. That's just never going to be his thing. So I'd like somebody in there, or at least the option. I'd like somebody there who can make some plays off the bounce. Again, everybody gets on me about Caleb Love. I know about Caleb Love. I know that he's a high usage player, but I would go to Caleb Love and I'd say this. Listen, you come to Arizona, you're going to get 12 or 13 solid shots per game. You're probably not going to get more. You're going to get better shots. Your percentages will go up. You're going to have to play some defense, and I just see what he has to say. I'd be curious about that because, again, I don't think much of Hubert Davis as a coach, so that doesn't totally throw me off right there. Now, so that's kind of where it is with that. But you got to get another player or two. I'd also like to get a developmental guy. And in a developmental guy, I'd like a DeMarco Dunn type. Now, DeMarco Dunn is a kid out of Tucson originally that went to the University of North Carolina for 2 years, didn't play a ton. But what I like about DeMarco Dunn is that he fits the profile of players that I'm looking for at the University of Arizona. And by fitting that profile, I mean that somebody that can play defense, is a little bit more athletic, and has some secondary ball handling qualities to him. I would like that possibility when it comes to DeMarco Dunn. And heck, I'd even be cool with redshirting DeMarco Dunn. Now, again, I get in this era of basketball, not everybody's cool being redshirted. Get all of that. But I would also like that possibility at least to be there for DeMarco Dunn, because I think he could be pretty good going forward then. Now, one thing that you don't have to worry about, there's no speculation on, is FanDuel. FanDuel.com/LockedOnCollege. All right, FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment count. Now, basketball's almost over. I'm bummed. But the best way to make something enjoyable, the best way to be enthusiastic about something is to have a little bit of money on it, a little bit of earnings, a little bit of scratch on there. And that's where FanDuel comes in. FanDuel, everybody knows about FanDuel.com/LockedOnCollege. It's been around forever. And the reason it's been around forever is because people trust it. And that is a big thing when it comes to sports and betting is trust. Your money's good with FanDuel.com/LockedOnCollege. Check it out. All right. We're going to take a quick break right here, and then we're going to talk about some of the versatility that some of the bench will provide for Arizona. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats, making this your first listen of the day, your team every day. I'm your host, Mike Luke. All right, now let's talk a little bit about just kind of the bench and some of the stuff that it provides. Now, with the bench, it's fascinating because you are tall. Arizona, I would imagine, is the tallest team in the country. Because what other team, like we talked about, what other team can throw a 7-footer, a 6'7" guy, and then after that, 7'2", 7 foot, 6'11"? Arizona is tall. Now, I think with some of these guys, it's a little deceiving, though, because these aren't the positional flexibility tall type players. These aren't players that, a lot of them can play together. Now, we talked about Motias Krivas. I don't necessarily see him being able to play with anybody outside of being a Pier 5. Basically, when Umar Ballo was out of the lineup, He's a big lumberer sort. He's about 7'2", 245. Again, got some skill to him. He's not a bum by any means. He's got some skill to him. But I also think that it's going to take him a little bit of time to get there. So not a lot of positional flexibility with him. Then Henry Vasar. Henry to me is interesting because Henry is a player who Henry is a player that shoots the 3-point or can shoot the 3-point shot, and even though he's not the fleetest of foot, can move a little bit as well. That's always fascinating. That's always enticing when you get a guy that can move a little bit. So maybe there's some minutes at the 3 or the 4 for him. Definitely not at the 3, but maybe there are some minutes at the 4 for him. I don't know that I see that happening, but I think that's the hope because again, Big Henry's got some skill to him. We keep talking about it, but if you go to practice, Henry can shoot the 3 a little bit. He can block shots. There are a lot of different things to like about Henry Vasar. It's just about being able to put those ones out there to be able to make those ones work. But so he got a little flexibility there. And I think with Kashad Johnson, obviously he's going to start, but you got some position flexibility with Kashad as well. Because again, Kashad Johnson, about 6'7", 235, he could play some center. He could play some power forward, obviously. So you're going to have some possibilities right there. The thing you got to remember though, is that out of all these big men, the only one that can really shoot, or at least that theoretically can shoot, is Henry, and he hasn't shown that in games yet. And then my guy, Dylan Anderson. Dylan, I'd like to see multiple red shirts on this team this year. Now, again, probably doesn't happen. I get that we're in a different era of college basketball, but at about 7 foot, 240, I think Dylan might be the odd man out. But I like Dylan, though. I think Dylan can play. I think Dylan's just going to need a little bit of time to be able to get to that point. But if he's patient, I think he's going to be good. Now, so what about some of the other players? Philly B, no clue what to expect out of Philly B. No clue what to expect out of Philly B. Other than he's kind of again, he's a little bit of a wild card. But I don't know. I don't necessarily view him as a rotational player. Love to be wrong there, but again, haven't seen a ton from him to indicate that he's a rotation guy. But again, would love to be wrong right there on Philly B. So that's kind of your roster right now. So again, you're going to add 2 or 3 guys still. Now again, you got the unnamed international player who's about a 6'7" combo forward who. A 6'7" combo forward who I think is very, very good. I'm not sure exactly what to expect. He's not going to start. And he's definitely more of a 4 than a 3. I think anybody that says a guy's a combo forward, generally they're a 4 who would like to show that they can handle the ball a little bit. That's kind of what the mystery international player is right there. But again, I don't look for a major instant impact from him because I think Kashad Johnson pretty much took that spot right there, which is a good thing. Then again, I think you got 2 backcourt spots open. And not only do you have 2 backcourt spots open, I think that they can be used for 2 different things. First of all, like we talked about, I would like to see Arizona offer DeMarco Dunn. I don't expect him to come in and be an instant impact player by any means, but I think that he can be a solid rotational piece. And I would think that the possibility of him possibly redshirting, getting better, getting stronger, getting used to Tommy Lloyd's system would be really ideal. And then again, you got to find another dude. And I would imagine that whoever that other guy is, he's probably currently declared for the NBA draft. And probably with portal options, obviously. It's probably going to be somebody like Courtney Ramey, where, starts at a big school, or maybe not even a big school, but is at a place, starts for 3 or 4 years, goes off to the NBA, gets feedback, and then they tell him what he needs to be able to do with that to get to that next level. I think that that's probably where Arizona is going to be as far as that transfer portal market right there. But again, got to find one more difference maker on the perimeter, and then I think Arizona is pretty much good to go. Now, Let's talk about our expectations for this team and what we see on the other side. Thanks for keeping it locked on, Wildcats. I'm your host, Mike Luke. All right, now, what are our possibilities for this team? I don't believe that this team is a national title contender. I believe they are the following season, but who knows? In college basketball, it's just such a crapshoot at this stage in the game where you have players who, look at San Diego State. San Diego State and UConn. Raise your hand if you thought that those two were going to be in the national championship game. Nobody's raising their hand. If they are raising their hand, they're lying. Maybe UConn. Nobody thought San Diego State. So that's where college basketball is. So again, everybody's got a chance. I just don't view Arizona as having enough dynamic scoring. Again, Tommy Lloyd with his system is always going to be able to get dudes that can put the ball in the basket. That's his thing. That's how he rolls. He's always going to be able to do that. But there is a little bit of an issue then where when the clock winds down and you got 7-8 seconds left, who's getting you that shot? And we saw that against Princeton too, that not only did you not have that shot, you had not only did you not have that shot, you didn't really have anybody that wanted to take it. Now, again, I think it's going to be a little bit different this year. I think you're going to have guys that are going to embrace that moment. But again, you don't really know until you watch to see who exactly will embrace that moment and who won't embrace that moment. Because again, a lot of people say they want that big shot, but you don't really know until the chips are down. And when the chips are down, that's when you generally know. So that's kind of where that is. Now, but I do believe this team could be a top 15 to 25 team. I do believe they can compete for the Pac-12 title. I think USC, as we've talked about, I think USC is going to be dynamic. I like Andy Enfield. I know a lot of people don't like Andy Enfield. They're wrong. I'm right. Andy Enfield is a pretty good coach. I think if they have a lineup of Isaiah Collier, Boogie Ellis, Bronny James, Vincey with Chukwu, and then you could go with the Joshua Morgan. You can go Kobe Johnson. You got other different options. They should be really good. They have the best roster on paper in the conference, and then Oregon also has a better roster than Arizona. But Oregon's been dysfunctional. People have questions about Andy Enfield, and the Tommy gun has been absolutely lights out since he's been at Arizona. So there's certainly a possibility that Arizona could outperform there. Now, you're going to need Kylan Boswell to make that step. Kylan Boswell, to me, has to be the best player on that team. And not only do I think he needs to be the best player on the team, I think he can be an all-conference player. Again, I don't think he's going to be an All-American, but I'd like to see Boswell average something like 15-6, 15-7, something like that. If you average 15-6, 15-7, you're going to be in a pretty good spot. And I think that's where Arizona is right now. They need that to be the case with Boswell. And I think that defensively, he needs to be able to bring it a little bit more. And he might have been able to he probably needs to bring things a little bit more to the defensive side. But I have absolutely no doubt that he's going to be able to do that. And not only is he going to be able to do that, I think he's going to excel at that role, to be honest with you. And then Jaden Bradley, same thing with him. Again, I need 10-4 out of him. If you get 10-4 out of Jaden Bradley, you get 10-5 out of Pelle Larson, you get 15. That's 35 points right there on your perimeter. And then let's just say whoever auxiliary player you bring in gets you 10. That's 45 points right there up front. Umar Ballo-Kashad. So the points start coming in. But as we've always talked about, it's when are those points made? When are they impactful? And when are they impactful? And that's kind of where we're at right there. So again, that's I think Arizona is going to be very good this year. And a big tip of the cap to Tommy Lloyd for adjusting, a big tip of the cap for him figuring out what he needs to do to make this roster better. And I think to put a little bit more of a toughness factor in there. And so there we are. Now, so we'll find out where it is. Now, Arizona football has done some really good things as well. It's not just Arizona basketball around here. Montana Lamonius Craig, new wide receiver for the University of Arizona, committed out of Colorado. Very good player, Colorado's best wide receiver. He was going to bring a lot to the University of Arizona's already loaded wide receiving core. We're going to talk about him a ton tomorrow. and kind of get you caught up a little bit on Arizona football and where everything stands with that. But again, Arizona basketball in very, very good shape right now. I think everybody should be very excited about where Arizona is. And then with Arizona football, Jedd Fisch obviously has this thing going in the right direction. So we're going to talk about all that tomorrow. As always, though, appreciate you keeping it locked on Wildcats and making it your first listen of the day. We'll be back with you tomorrow.